Hello, everyone. I'm just going to give it a few minutes for people to open up this event on their phones or other devices. Welcome. So, hi, everyone. My name is Savannah, and I am the Book Week coordinator with SaskBooks, the Creative Industry Association for book publishing in Saskatchewan. So this evening, we are proud to feature some of the rural contributors of Apart, a pandemic anthology published by the Saskatchewan Writers Guild. We are joined tonight by Madonna Hamel from Val Marie, Paula Jane Remlinger from Beaver Creek, Carla Braidek from Big River, Helen Mourre from Rosetown, Peggy Worrell from Swift Current, Maureen Ulrich from Lampman, and Allison Kidd from Indian Head. We had 7 contributors featured, and most of them are here or will be here, and hopefully. And so it's a very exciting night. So I was fortunate enough to travel across the province and film readings with Margot Anderson was the awesome person who helped me do that. And we were able to film readings of these authors' contributions to this anthology. It was an honor to listen to their work in their homes, in local libraries, in their bookstores, and it was so amazing to be able to listen in such intimate settings to these stories. So we've gathered short excerpts of their readings, which we'll share on the Book Week YouTube page the short excerpts are in a video that we're going to be sharing with you all tonight. It's like a little teaser trailer of all of their readings, but the full readings, which were too long to do in one evening, those will be available on the Book Week YouTube page at a later date. They are fantastic, and I really hope you all listen to them in their entirety. Everyone is an incredible performer, and it was an honor. So please go and watch them when they're available. We will be posting about that as well. Before we get started, I just wanted to say a few things. So first, SaskBooks is located, our head office is located on Treaty 4 territory in Regina, but as the Provincial Creative Industry Association for Book Publishing, our work reaches lands covered by Treaties 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10, the traditional lands of the Nahiwak, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Dene peoples, as well as the homeland of the Métis Nation. I would love if everyone would write in the comments the traditional land that you're viewing from. If you don't know, I'm going to put a little link, and you can actually find out and share. So please do, and we would love to hear where you're at. Acknowledgement in itself is just part of a larger commitment, and we'd also like to encourage everyone to read the TRC's calls to action and implement them. Here's another link to the calls to action. Love it. If you haven't seen it or read it yet, here's a great link and opportunity to take a look at that. I'd also like to thank our funders, the Department of Canadian Heritage, the Canada Book Fund, and Creative Saskatchewan. Without their support, Book Week would not be possible. So tonight we are streaming to Facebook and to YouTube and to Twitter. And if you have any questions, you can just comment, and we'll try and monitor the comments, and we'll try and help you out in whatever way we can. So I am so excited to introduce the authors, the contributors that we have here tonight from across the province. So I'm going to start with Madonna. Madonna Hamel is a writer-performer who works in a variety of genres, including radio, documentary, one-woman monologues, poetry, screenwriting, nonfiction essays, and short stories. Her column, Ask Your Life, has been adapted into a memoir writing course and tailored to teens. Her touring show, Mother's Apron, was showcased last summer at the Lyric, toured BC and Saskatchewan last year, and is now being adapted into a novel. For 3 years, she wrote a weekly column called The Story Pool for Maple Creek News. She was awarded the 2020 Wallace Stegner House Residency. Paula Jane Remlinger. Her work has appeared in On Spec, CV2, Room, Grain, Prairie Fire, and The New Quarterly, as well as other journals and anthologies. She is the author of several teacher resource guides and enjoys writing for children and adults. She holds 4 degrees, including an MA in English from the University of Saskatchewan, where she wrote her thesis on the late Saskatchewan poet John V. Hicks, and an MFA from UBC. She lives in Beaver Creek, Saskatchewan, with her husband, Trent, and works at the Saskatchewan Human Rights Commission. Carla Braidek lives and writes in the boreal forest near Big River, Saskatchewan. Her book, Carrying the Sun, was shortlisted for the Saskatchewan Book Award for Poetry. Her work is also published in her chapbook, Quickening, the Hagios Press anthology, New Saskatchewan Poets, and various literary magazines. Her poetry was included in the full-length documentary, Unplugged, a 2010 collaboration that was filmed during that time. Helen Moore's writing has always been informed by the prairie landscape and its people. The author of 3 collections of short fiction, Helen Mourre's work have been nominated for Saskatchewan Book Awards. She loves to sing, play the piano, badly, garden, and has recently transitioned into writing personal essays. She lives in Rosetown with her husband, a retired farmer who still puts in 12-hour days on the combine. PJ Worrell has studied at St. Peter's College in Munster, Saskatchewan, the Banff Centre, and the Munster Literature Centre, with Sarah Selecki, Jessica Grant, Sean Virgo, Linda Monahan, and Michelle Roberts as mentors. She has enjoyed modest success in the world of publication and contests. Worrell grew up on a Saskatchewan farm, attended Sunday school, and has always tried to be a good girl. Social work practice in mental health and geriatrics have provided fodder for her stories. She has one foot in Swift Current, Saskatchewan, and the other in a cabin at a northern lake. Maureen Ulrich, who isn't here yet, but hopefully will be here soon, has spent 25 years in the classroom with junior and senior high school students and loves to write for teens. Her feet are firmly planted in 2 worlds, the arts and sports. When she's not writing, there's nothing she'd rather be doing than watching football, baseball, or hockey, traveling, riding her motorcycle, or going to plays. Allison Kidd is a long-standing member of the Saskatchewan Writers Guild who loves writing retreats when the province and the world is not in lockdown. Her novella is entitled Emily via the Greyhound Bus, and her historical novel is called Few and Far. She writes a regular newspaper column called Local Heroes and has won prizes for individual short stories. So please join me in welcoming all of these amazing women. All right, we're going to this view now. They're all here. They are here. Welcome. Thank you all for joining us today. So happy to have you here. I don't know if you all just want to you can unmute yourselves and just say hi really quick, and then I think we'll hop into the video.
Hello. Hi really quick. Helen and Maureen.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Great. Good evening. I hope you're comfortable because this is going to be good.
All right. Well, I think we should just get into it. I'm going to add this video here. Just a second. So this is the video, and I hope you all enjoy it. Again, this is these are like the fragments from the video put together into like a little teaser for all of you tonight. So hope you enjoy. Actually, and if I'll just get everyone to mute yourself if you haven't already while we play the video. And I'll mute myself. Okay.
Lake notes. The window pane is cool beneath my palm, as flakes so small they are almost pellets sheet from the sky. It will not take long for them to fill the deck in their deliberate way. Already they mask the path and fire pit we used last night. There were only 3 of us, awaiting a 4th, gathered very loosely around a welcoming fire not far from the house. Events of the day were quietly shared, including sightings of lynx tracks and the welcome continuation of blue skies and no wind. Casually, we poked the fire and wondered if our fourth was going to arrive. This night was an opportunity to say hello while still maintaining recommended social distancing. It was also the continuation of a ritual, the burning of the torches. When our words were used up and the waiting was enough, we dipped our tightly rolled cardboards into the blaze of the pit and ambled the path to the lake. Each torch is fashioned from old tree planting boxes, which are made from wax-coated cardboard, the ideal material for a torch. The roll is secured with a bit of string. A few years ago, my partner took the time to figure this out, and thus began our torch ritual. Torches require night, snow, and ideally not extremely cold temperatures or high winds, though we have gone out in some dubious conditions. Gripping our torches at the base, we held them upright so they would not be consumed too quickly. We made our way down the short path, using care as we passed through the tree line of poplar, birch, spruce, and tamarack. Arriving on the shore of the lake, we trudged out onto its snow-covered surface. Dawson arrived, and then we were four. We drifted in slow meanders, partly from the lumpy footing, partly from repeatedly pausing to look at our own and others' torches. None of us strayed too far, perhaps out of laziness, but more likely because the desire to remain closer during this time of social constraint. There wasn't a lot of conversation. More time was passed admiring the stars and squinting into torchlight.
I pulled up to the house just as the shelter-in-place order came through. Before unpacking the car, I explored every room, clapping my hands with glee. "I'm here," I hooted. "I'm actually writer-in-residence in Wallace Stegner's childhood home." I pulled my journal from my knapsack and planned to get down to work over a steak at the 100-year-old Jack's Cafe. But Jack's was closed due to COVID. Highway 13, the main thoroughfare, otherwise known as Redcoat Trail, was empty, except for a fellow sitting on a bench across the street. He waved and hollered across to me. "How you doing?" "I'm great," I hollered back. "Considering." "Considering what?" he asked. Despite the sunny, warm spring day, no one walked the banks of the Frenchman River. No children played in the schoolyard up the street. No squealing, no running, no skipping. Maybe girls don't skip anymore. They probably don't dance in a circle either, holding hands and singing that Black Death ditty. "Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posy, husha, husha," we all fall down. Oblivious to the fact that the rosy ring, a blotch on the skin, was the first sign of plague. And the pocket of posy referred to small bouquets of flowers and herbs you stuffed in your pockets to ward away death. Husha was originally a shoo, the final sound a body made as it succumbed. On the Ides of March, just before driving to East End, my friend Paige and I made a video. "We interrupt this surveillance," I hollered over the wind into his camera, "with this news flash. Deep sources confirm the latest correspondence from the planet, this planet Earth, is indeed authentic. Issued this morning, not digitally, but by hand, in cursive, the Earth claims to have come to the end of her patience with her tenants, those not behaving as stewards, and realizes they simply can't or won't stop clobbering the animals, clotting the waters, or clouding her skies, so Mom Earth has decided to take matters back into her own calloused and ever-loving hands. The god of dirt has spoken."
Paradox. Today is an occasion, leaving the house. First time in weeks, climbing out of a fallout shelter after an apocalypse. The faintest scent of hope permeates, enlivens the lizard brain, something unfamiliar after so much time. Outing to the city, groceries, mail. Do you have your mask, hand sanitizer, disinfectant wipes? A good notion of social distancing, a personal bubble that screams, stay away? I have dwelt too long apart. I am the thing that doesn't belong, a strange newness, unfolding wings in a caterpillar world.
Fidelity. Veronica sits at the bay window in the living room most mornings. Sits until guilt or sheer boredom sends her off to accomplish some small task. Oh yes, she's keeping a list. Get dressed, brush hair, make bed, put away clothes, balance bank statement, water plants, try new recipe, sweep or vacuum, phone, X, Y, or Z, finish letter to M, practice, standing warrior, shoulder rolls, downward facing dog. Not that she ever makes it to the end of the list, but she scribbles it out anyway. Otherwise, she might not bother getting out of bed. He has little to say about it, though she knows he worries. Once or twice he's asked if she's depressed, if that's why she's sleeping so much. Everyone is depressed, she says. It's the state of the world. How can anyone not be depressed? She knows she's overreacting, but she resents the question when obviously she's not the kind to give in, no matter what she's up against. She's always been able to lick her wounds and then get on with things. Or so she tells herself. And how dare he anyway? He used to compliment her willingness to fight any battle, like when she was being hooked up to that intravenous bag once a week. He'd watch as the needle went into her arm, would sit beside her, read for hours while the poison did its work. Almost 20 years ago now. Not that much drama in their lives anymore, especially not for the last year. He mustn't give up on her now. After all, she isn't lying when she says she's committed to him, and being committed means one can't afford to fail. Though it's okay for her to have doubts now and then, she knows she doesn't mean anything by them. He mustn't think he made another mistake.
Annabelle looked out her kitchen window at the snow-blasted houses on George Street, the result of a ferocious wind 2 days ago, which rampaged throughout the late afternoon, evening, and into the night, leaving little spikes of pain pulsing in her forehead and eyes. No, she reasoned, it's not COVID. The far more likely diagnosis, anxiety. The power had been off all night, and the house was just now beginning to warm. It was all too much, the pandemic, the surging case numbers, and then to top it off, a biblical storm. She'd found the only cure, walking several kilometers a day, no matter the weather. Now her body and her brain and her psyche craved the ritual like an addict. It was a harmless addiction, low cost, no nasty side effects, respectable. "I'm going walking, hun," she yelled down to David in the rec room, where he was poring over another jigsaw puzzle, his addiction of choice. Annabelle thought perhaps he needed therapy. He'd been stuck on this puzzle for weeks now, with a couple of dozen pieces left orphaned. It seemed to him that the pieces were all the same, and they would kind of fit, but not really, and then he was off on another hunting expedition. Annabelle was no help, as she disliked making puzzles and had no talent for it whatsoever. She set off up the snow-clad street, her studded winter boots grabbing the icy patches, her arms swinging in a pleasant rhythm, legs stretching out, the pain behind her eyes gradually receding. She maneuvered around fallen tree branches and toppled recycling bins all the way up George Street, past Walter Asseltine Elementary, where Elliot, her youngest grandson, was in grade 6. They'd been back in school now for several days after closing down for 2 weeks before Christmas because of a COVID outbreak. She loved hearing the sounds of the children at recess, so bright and innocent and happy. It almost didn't ring true, as if this were a scene from another time, long ago.
Ode to Penelope. You lurk behind the leftovers in the back of my fridge. Bide your time. Tuesday night, I place you on the counter to warm. You perk and pulse, expand. Look at me, I'm ready. On Wednesday, you lure me from bed. I portion your elastic flesh for our next assignation, cajole the rest with flour and water that clings to the crevices between my fingers. By mid-afternoon, you overflow the bowl's rim. I wrestle you into a boule, score you with a blade, thrust you in a hot oven where your skin browns, blisters, breaks.
On the eve of Halloween, Elizabeth I. On a homestead at Rhine, Saskatchewan, Elizabeth and her husband Heinrich grew grain and vegetables and raised cattle, pigs, and chickens to feed their 6 children. They drew water from a well, cooked on a wood stove, heated with furnace oil, washed clothes on a washboard, used an outhouse, and owned a team of horses to pull a plow, buggy, and sleigh. Their day-to-day lives were much the same as those of other German immigrants who had arrived on the prairies from Russia early in the 20th century and were spared the Bolshevik massacre. Although women had earned the right to vote in 1916, neither Elizabeth nor Heinrich voted in the 1917 election because they could not read or write English. By then, the population of Saskatchewan had grown to 700,000 due to immigration from Germany, the United States, and the Scandinavian countries. News of influenza reached Rhine in 1918, causing them to worry about their youngest daughter Lillian's barking cough. They took her by horse and buggy the 36 miles to Yorkton to see a doctor. He prescribed medicine for croup and explained how to make a croupette. Before leaving Yorkton, Heinrich bought the October 1st edition of the Regina Leader. He could make sense of the word flu in the headline. Heinrich constructed a dome-shaped frame over Lillian's bed and covered it with canvas. Elizabeth set a pot of boiling water on the floor for the steam to rise into an opening in the tent. Heinrich took the newspaper to the Justice of Peace in Rhine. He read aloud, Dr. Seymour, Provincial Health Commissioner, will search a train bound from Eastern Canada for signs of the Spanish influenza amongst the passengers. Some passengers with symptoms had already been removed from the train in Winnipeg. Preventative measures to stop the spread of the disease include isolation and the wearing of masks.
right. Hi, everyone. Okay. So that was the video. I hope you enjoyed it.
I liked hearing it, but I don't know if it was breaking up for everyone else as much as it was for me, but I found that it was kind of unfortunate that was happening. The picture was breaking up for me all the time.
The picture was, yeah, but thankfully the sound was great.
The sound was great. Yes, I agree.
I'm just so thrilled to be part of this gang of gals. Oh my God.
It's good, hey? Oh my.
It's so great. And Allison, that whole fidelity thing, oh, I totally got it. And it's like, it's more electric and necessary and important that people get us right now. And the other thing that I really, really like, I was taking notes, but Peggy, well, I love Peggy's writing. Like I'm totally like a girl fan of Peggy. And her bringing it back, I've had this conversation. I just got in today. Like I just got home today, and I can't imagine a better place to be than here and see myself in my corner with my cacti. But the conversation was, because I drove between here and Cortez Island, masked the entire time.
Well done.
This is not the first time, people. This is not the first time. I was around a lot of older people who kept listing different times throughout history where this, evidence pulling people. And so that last line, and beautiful editing, Emily, to put that at the end, Peggy's last word, the mask. The mask is going to be the symbol of this decade. It was so powerful. So anyway, that's sort of my takeaway. Thank you.
I don't know. Oh, okay, we're good.
We have an elephant in the room. It's making sounds.
I think we're good now. I think Madonna got us off to a great start. I would love for everyone to take a turn responding to that. Maybe if you have questions for each other, comments for each other. I don't know, Madonna, do you have anything else you want to say, or should we move on? Yeah.
Never a good thing to ask me that. It was so perfect. I just felt like I just feel, this time of isolation I'm not a huge fan of online. I've never been a fan of virtual as opposed to real, but I really do appreciate in this time of isolation, and I live in a village of 89 people, just like every once in a while, I get to see other women working their asses off at their writing. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's like totally selfish.
Thank you, Madonna. Peggy, do you want to go next? Do you want to?
Sure. Of course, I had read the pieces before, but it always brings them more to life when one hears the author read her own work. And it didn't break up for me on my iPhone in Swift Current, but sometimes it was a little bit out of focus, but it didn't break up, the picture or the sound. I wanted to specifically ask Allison if you would comment about that line, "Everyone is depressed."
Well, it's my character's line. You understand?
Yes.
But at this time, I found when I was doing this piece that the hardest thing in a way was to try to figure out what I wanted to say, and that was something that occurred to me. And my partner, my husband, and I have had this conversation about being depressed, and in fact, he does ask me depressed because I'm sleeping so much stuff. And I don't think I'm the kind of person, I don't get depressed, but I think that the situation is depressing. The situation is difficult. And I think that Paula Jane kind of captures that in her poem when she's escaping. She's finally escaping from home and isolation, you know, into interacting with people. So basically that's what I was trying to say, you know, but mostly my piece is about the relationship and the dialogue between these two people.
Mm-hmm. Well, for those of us who live with someone, there's been a lot of togetherness.
Yes. Yeah.
But
there are advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah. Anyhow, I too am thankful to be part of this group, and I'll pass the talking stick to someone else.
Allison, do you want to go, or should I'll go. We'll go to Allison next. Allison.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to go. And I'm sorry that I wasn't sure about the visual breaking up. I did find it quite distracting, even though the sound was really good, and I really enjoyed seeing all of my colleagues reading and hear, because I had read their pieces, but having people read their own work, I think, adds a wonderful dimension to it. But I wondered about the breaking up, whether it was simply my reception, and so that if it wasn't happening to everyone else as much, that must be part of it. I don't know why that happened. But I also noticed that, you know, for those of us who talk a lot with hands and move a lot, that seems to cause more breaking up. So I was thinking, next time, if there's ever a next time, I'll remember to try to sit really still, not move.
Well, I will say, Allison, though, that this video will also be available on YouTube. And when we were watching it on the computer, it was very smooth before.
Yeah.
So it might just be the fact that we're streaming to so many platforms right now that might have caused an issue, in addition to maybe internet issues. We did do it last night, and it was very smooth. So I feel like individual internet at people's homes might be a contributing factor. Regardless, a video will be available later that you can all watch, and it'll be good.
Yeah. Now, so thank you, Savannah. And I just wanted to add before, not wanting to take too much time, but Savannah, I really appreciated being part of that. It was I was so tickled when I heard from the Writers Guild that you were going to do this, and then had the little dialogue with you, and then had our taping. I really enjoyed that. It was a real treat.
Yeah, for me too.
Yeah.
Did you have questions for anyone else in the reading, Allison? Is there anything you're curious about or something you want to pose to your fellow contributors?
Well, I guess I was really interested to hear about Madonna's experience of Stegner House, and I guess I wanted to hear more about that, but I appreciate that you've already talked about that, you know, so hadn't formulated any other questions.
I will say really quickly what was really cool about how that all ended up, because I had other plans when I got there, and I was so upset to be alone in that house and not be able to go and meet other people and do the readings I was going to do, and then to go through my birthday there and not be able to see anybody was really weird, and I got really dark. It got really dark because the lockdown came when I was in Stegner House, and it wasn't the image of what it was going to be like. But I have to say that a member of the board, the arts board that was part of the choosing,
Mary Thompson. Was it Mary Thompson?
No, it wasn't Mary. It was Hugh. It was Hugh, and he's new to the board. But he's also part of this pilgrimage across Saskatchewan walk I do every summer. So he left some lasagna and a bottle of wine on the front porch, and then ran away because, you know, we don't know how contagious this is. In those early days, we were like, you know, cleaning everything. And I opened the door and I yelled out at him, and, "Oh my God, thank you, Hugh. Thank you for this. Did you know it was my birthday?" And he said, no, I just thought you might want some food.
It was all my birthday, so
Nice.
it was really, really
Nice.
amazing. And the other thing is, I didn't get as much written on the novel that I was hoping for, but I ended up writing this piece, keeping a diary about the experience of being in Stegner House during the pandemic, because Stegner, as a little boy, was being treated by his mom for a fever, and she was nursing people out of the Spanish flu when she was in that house.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. And then I ended up just, kind of tooting my horn a little. I ended up writing a piece that I sent to Prairie Fire, and it won the non-creative nonfiction award. So
I noticed that.
I didn't get the
Wonderful.
novel done, but I got to write another piece, 2 pieces. So it you just never know how these things are going to turn out.
Let's go to Paula Jane. Paula Jane, hello.
Hello.
Would you say some things?
Sure. Well, I'm just really happy to be here with everybody, and for people that Madonna and Peggy, this is the first time I've met them, but Allison and Carla, this is a chance to say hello, and I haven't seen you in such a long time, and I think that's what all the pieces share, is that feeling of you just want to connect again and start to make life normal. And it's too bad Maureen's not here, because I loved her piece. It's so funny, and working on the sourdough starter, and it's one of those things that I think our pieces didn't necessarily reflect that there's humor in the pandemic in the bits we saw, but I think that's an important thing to remember, is that humor in our writing can help us to carry us out of the depression and out of those things that we struggle with too. So it's nice to see everybody with smiling faces.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, Maureen isn't here. I sent her an email just to check in. Hopefully she'll pop on. But she I don't know if you could tell in the video, but she has flour on her face and an apron. So there were props, and you can all look forward to seeing that later. Carla, would you like to say something?
I would. I like everyone else, I'm so pleased to be asked to be part of the filming and this presentation and all of it. I'm just really pleased. And I really enjoyed Maureen. Maureen has the sexiest sourdough starter that I've ever met. So that was an excellent reading. And there's some of you that are such good readers, like you're moving, and I know it affects apparently it affects the glitching that happens when there's a lot of movement. But those readings are really much more interesting to watch. I know I just tend to sit. I use my face. I'm not one of these. But talking about like people have talked about getting out of that intimate when there's 2 people there, and kind of escaping from that, or that tension that comes with that sometimes. And I was living alone through the start of the pandemic, and still, and that is so that's a bit of a different kettle of fish, and I think that's part of that, combined with the fact that if I ever lost all my senses, I would want to keep my sense of hearing. It's really precious to me, for music and other reasons, and to hear people's voices. And so to hear people's voices is just so important. In my piece that I wrote, in the essay I wrote, I think that I know that the solace I found is in nature. Even if I'm by myself, to be out in nature, that's where I find where the anxiety will fall back and the loneliness will go away and all of that. It makes such a difference for me. And then to be able to share it with people is really nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you, Carla.
You're welcome.
Actually, that kind of that I would like to ask everyone. Some of you have sort of spoken a bit to this, and Carla just kind of spoke to this. But what is bringing you joy lately? What is in this moment? You know, when I
My
initially
paddleboard.
okay, taking you out
Yep.
to Flynn Lake.
Yeah, I live right by a lake, and like it's about 50 steps from my deck to the lake, and I was out there today. I might have jumped in, but I put my feet in, and it was like, yeah, you better reconsider that. That's pretty chilly.
I love that paddleboard. Paula Jane, what's bringing you joy in this, fourth wave, and with all the other things going on, what's bringing you joy?
I'm writing a lot of letters to people, and I take a lot of pleasure in that. For me, it's all about me. I'm a narcissist. It's like I get to tell you everything that's going on in my life and what's happening, and then I can send it away. And there's some pleasure in being able to release some of those things. And so I have great friends who are great listeners but live far away. So I've been writing a lot of letters.
Did you do that before the pandemic, or has this been something you like really?
I did. I did. I've always been a letter writer, but I've roped other people into it more so in the pandemic.
I love that. Madonna, what is bringing you joy?
In light of just having returned from visiting with family, where I have a sister in Medicine Hat, a sister in Banff, a sister in Kelowna, and a brother on Cortez Island. And basically I drove, and we had successively nicer cars as we went along. And they left my tin can behind because it's just covered in giant dents from the last hailstorm. It's relationship. And honestly, it took me a really long time to get into hanging with people because I was getting really used to being alone. But there's a joke here, like this whole thing about 6 feet apart, and 6 feet apart is hurting us in. So you don't need to tell people to keep their distance. Distance is a part of life here. And I came here for that. I had an image of myself becoming a desert mother, a medieval, early Christian monk, a nun, in the desert, finding my spiritual source. I feel in some ways by coming here 7 years ago, I was preparing myself for the isolation that would fall on us. But what I realized is that, as I recently watched Thomas Merton, a monk of the 60s, say, monks do not live alone. We live with other monks. We have 12 other husbands in the same building with us. All this togetherness that Peggy talks about, kind of ambiguous togetherness. It's learning about living in relationship, in community. Hermits live alone. Monks do not. And so this experience of relating with others where they're at, like meeting people where they're at, it's just so hard for me. I just would rather just be alone in this place of 1,000 books and just read and write and not have to deal with people. So oddly enough, ironically, isolation has taught me how to deal with people.
That's an interesting point, because what I noticed in our local community, I'm in a rural setting, and there's maybe 10 or 12 households, not too far away. And what I noticed throughout the pandemic was greater community interaction while still maintaining the distance and whatever, but more care taken about, do they have enough firewood, and do they need groceries, and that kind of thing, and just communication in other ways, and getting together at a distance. There was lots of outdoor fires and walks and that kind of thing, and it really felt good.
Well, I connect with that what you've been saying about community, I think, and togetherness, and that connects to what brings me joy. And I think the most significant thing that I started or that happened, though I do also write letters. So I was writing more letters at the beginning, and I'm not writing as many now. I don't know why, but I'm writing a column for the local paper, and I call it Local Heroes. And basically, I'm interviewing somebody every week and talking to them about community and how things have changed for them because of COVID, but also hearing life stories or wanting to tell some of their life story as much as they want to tell me. And if they tell me things they don't want printed, I say I respect it, absolutely. But it's such a privilege, and it's something that I feel I can do. I don't have a car, so I can't go running errands and check on whether people have firewood or food or whatever, things like that. So this is something that I can do, is I can phone people and write the interviews, and the editor of the local paper is really, really good. You know, I'm sending her pieces that are twice as long as I originally queried. She usually takes them, and she usually uses all the photos if she can manage it, you know. So I feel very lucky to do that, and that does bring me a lot of joy.
Well, what's brought me joy is, first of all, people. I have been blessed to have the companionship of my husband during the COVID. Jim is his name. And I've been able to spend time with children and grandchildren. And after that lengthy period of not seeing them, it's something I don't take for granted, that's for sure. I visited my son in Montreal. I hadn't seen him in a year and a half. And so that was precious, as well as seeing other family members in various places since travel has opened up somewhat. And then there's also always reading and writing. And I have been doing a lot of writing during the pandemic. I've got a novel pretty close to completion, a novel in stories. And as far as reading goes, just today, in fact, this afternoon, I went to a book study. A group of us are studying Sharon Butala's latest book, this Strange Visible Air, which is a collection of essays. And so that was really stimulating. Some people came in person and some chose to participate via Zoom, but we're going to have a series of sessions studying and thinking about Sharon's book. So that's, again, input from Southern Saskatchewan.
Now, I think Sharon was on the list as being interested or attending. So I hope she is listening in and has heard that. But maybe she knows that you're discussing it anyway.
You know, Sharon is a freaking writing machine.
She's amazing.
And I mean, beautiful stuff. But her short stories, Season of Fury and Wonder, really was groundbreaking, because it was about women of our age in our season of Fury and Wonder. And it won all these awards for a short story book. So I know for a fact, when I went into Stegner and she was starting a COVID novel, I was like 3/4 of a way struggling through mine. She finished the novel and then wrote the book of essays. And I'm still like toddling along in my little novel. And she's like doing readings and publishing essays, and she's just amazing. She's a national treasure. That woman is a national treasure.
She is amazing. And of course, she has so many, because she was part of the arts board that brought back Stegner House. She has such an attachment to Stegner House and to East End and everything.
I'm curious, just what you're saying, Madonna, about just how productive she is and how much she's like, you know, churning out stuff. Have any of your writing processes changed through the pandemic? Has it impacted your approach? Like I've heard that some people have been like producing much more, like able to concentrate in different ways, and others, because of the lack of contact, that's actually had the opposite effect. So I would love to hear from you. How has this impacted your writing? Who whoever wants
I
to
feel in the same way that a lot of people have mentioned that their conversations with people have deepened, that I'm less interested in being superficial or trite or silly. Not humor, deeply, deeply, deeply important, but like the kind of humor that is we're laughing at our own absurdity, or we're laughing at the brevity of our lives. That has affected me. Like, it's like, okay, you know what? Pull out all the stops. Don't pull any punches. This is it. Like, right from a deeper, braver level. That's what I've noticed this has done.
Love that. Paula Jane?
I've actually found that I've struggled a lot during the pandemic to write. And it's not because I haven't had the time or the space or the support or any of that. It's just my headspace, I guess, it's not been a very secure time. It's a time of a lot of anxiety. And so I find that if my headspace is cluttered with other things like that, I don't write as well. So for me, it's had the opposite effect. I really haven't been writing poetry, very much during this. And the ones that I have written are all depressing.
Yeah, I understand that.
Did you say my name?
Yeah.
I've been writing more during the pandemic than I did before. And it takes me a very long time. Like, it takes me probably a year to write a story after revising it, 10 million times until I'm satisfied with it. And when I received it wasn't personal, but when I received the invitation to contribute to the pandemic anthology Apart, as did all the other Saskatchewan Writers Guild members, I immediately thought, I remember being told that my grandfather died of the Spanish flu on the eve of Halloween. That's really all I knew. And so I asked, would it be okay to write about that rather than this pandemic, and was told by Dave Margoshes, yes. And I wrote that story really quickly. I don't know, I'm going to say a month. And that was really unusual for me. So for some reason, that spurred me on to write more quickly than I usually would have in the past. I don't know the reason for that.
I really liked that you made that link, because I think we've been talking about that our generation hasn't had a crisis in the same way as our parents' generation. They had the war, and before that they had the Spanish flu. So I really related to what you wrote about the Spanish flu, because people have been talking about it more, I think. So
thank you, Allison. Carla.
Well, because of other events in my life, I haven't been writing very much. I'm just starting to get back into writing. And I have 2 books of poetry out, and I shouldn't say most of what I've had published. The books I've had published are poetry. I've had other articles in journals and things published. But I've been exploring more the essay, like a personal essay form, and I'm probably going to continue. It feels to me that the essay and poetry are just so closely linked. It's just a little jump back and forth, and so I'm just going to keep going with that.
Well, that's exciting. Something to look forward to to see.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have anything they want to say or ask each other before we kind of wrap up?
May I mention that when I was taped, I was actually standing in front of Bonnie Bernard's Suddenly. I actually moved it on the shelf because I wanted to stand beside it, but I realized in the taping that I actually was blocking it a lot of the time. But I want you to know that I deliberately chose to be with Bonnie when I was reading, because I knew her well a long time ago, and when I saw it on the shelf, I just wanted to be close to it. But I also wanted to say that probably, I don't know, I haven't been writing as much of my stuff in a way, but somehow writing the column has filled in that space. And I, as a writer, I play with this idea, I balance. Well, I worry all the time that I'm not writing enough, but then I also acknowledge that I can't be the kind of writer who isn't involved with my family and isn't involved with thinking about my friends and stuff like that. I can never really, I mean, I have to always look at my life and say, okay, what's most important here? And somehow that writing about the people in my town is very much what my life is, also very much of what my life is about. So
I think that's good. I think that's a very, very important part of our writing, is to tell stories, the stories that people are living. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I think so.
You know,
hi, there's Bernie.
There's a
if I
comment
could
here.
say something that I thought about when I was doing the last leg of my drive today, I was thinking about the phrase, the Indigenous phrase, all my relations, as I was just looking at this great open, empty, wide prairie that's from Cadillac to Val Marie, where you're every single time I'm like, did I pass it? Where am I? Every 7 years, like, and every time, like, I really do live into the deep, deep desert. But that's really, relationships. It's like forming relationships. They just said it way before us in a way better way. And we probably took that from them, that, the classic line, it's all about relationships. Only we don't say that in order to make a deal. We say it because we need to remind ourselves that's why we do it, because I think something like this is so beautiful, to be together and remember that we're not doing it alone, even though it feels like we're so alone in the process of writing, but that eventually we are doing it to connect. And I love that. And I love that once we're done, and whoever resonates with it will resonate with it. And we may never know what we did, but we did it to keep the relationships going. That's what I feel about this.
Thank you, Madonna. Thank you. Perfectly. Thank you for saying those words. Does anyone else have anything they want to add? I think we could just leave it at that then. Thank you, Madonna, for closing us off with that. Yes, everything, it does come down to relationships. It really does. And I think I felt so honored to be able to meet you all and to spend time with you and listen to you and get to see you in your own communities and the way that you are connected, like the librarians that I got to meet and when I was, the librarians and the bookstore owners at McNally Robinson, and it was truly special, and that those connections and relationships are so energizing, and I'm really grateful for that. So thank you all so much for agreeing to participate in this this little book week event, for being willing to read and to join each other in this space. And I'm very grateful for your time and for your contributions. So thank you. I also just want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. Thanks for listening. Please, the videos will be available online later. Takes a very long time to upload long videos, apparently, or at least we have had issues with that. So we will let you know when they are available. Please watch them. Each reading is truly wonderful. And I promise there will be no glitches on the uploaded versions. So you can look forward to that. Thanks again to our funders, the Department of Canadian Heritage, the Canada Book Fund, and Creative Saskatchewan. I also want to thank my friend Margot, who came and traveled with me. She is the tech person. She was the tech brains of the operation. So shout out to Margot. I don't know if she's listening, but shout out to her anyways. And thank you to Emily who edited the videos. You are amazing. I really appreciate you and all that you do. And thanks to Dan and Jill as well at SaskBooks. I just also want to add that you should really buy this book. Everyone, please buy this book.
Yes.
I'm putting it in the chat.
Yes.
So,
Thank you, Savannah, so much. And thank you, everyone who's out there listening. And thank you, all you other writers and those who aren't here but have pieces in a part. I'm just really pleased to be part of it.
Yes.
Well said, Carla.
Well said, Carla.
And keep your eyes open for more readings from this in our local communities, because I know for a fact we'll be doing some in East End and through the Lyric Theatre and so forth.
Yes. I just sent out a little text with the locations and dates, or sort of rep dates. Keep your eyes peeled for that, everyone. There's a little note. So just mark
thanks to Dave Margosha's great editing job.
Oh yes, yeah.
And Courtney Bates Hardy.
It was great working with both of them. Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone so much. It has been such an honor. Hopefully we can all connect in the future. And until then, stay healthy and find the joy in what you are finding it in. So take care.
Absolutely. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.